Hey guys, what's happening? My name is Erik Swanson. Erik Swanson, that's me. Wait, hold on. I gotta introduce myself. Wait, how am I gonna do this? I gotta stay 6 feet away. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna try this. Hold on, guys. Let's see if I can do this in the. Okay, this is 3 feet away. Can I do elbows? I don't know if I can do this. I'm just gonna say hi to you guys. How about that? My name is Erik Swanson. I'm the host of the School of the Unstoppable. What's this mean? Well, this means you got to be unstoppable in every area of your life. And what I've done is this. I've surrounded myself. Oh, I've got some bios. I need to read some introductions to these really cool individuals that I'm bringing on. I'm bringing on some licensed, amazing, awesome psychotherapists that are experts and coaches, and they are changing people's lives all over the place from their expertise. And I really am excited about bringing them on. So I know, first of all, I got to say a little quick timeout. I realize that there's some issues going on with a lot of you on the internet at the same time. Now, I realize, I know, you guys really like my show, and everyone's jumping on to either two things, either Deepak Chopra or Erik Swanson. I get that. But what I'm saying is, let some people just kind of give it a break a little bit, space out so that we can actually get this going. All right. So that's my little request for you guys. So let me bring up what I was looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Give me a second. And yeah, this is what I wanted to find. All right. So guys, I'm so excited about, oh man, I've got some really cool bios that I got to read too. All right. So I'm on our two amazing guests. And let me just tell you about these two individuals, okay? We have Claudia Soul and we have Missy Beck coming on to this broadcast right here, right now. They're in the green room right now, eating I don't know what they're eating, but they're down there somewhere in this green room. And oh my gosh, they're drinking now. Oh, they're laughing. I can hear them giggling through the walls. So here's the deal. Claudia Soul, oh, they're really giggling. Can you hear them? So Claudia Soul, I forgot to push mute on their mic. So Claudia Soul is a licensed psychotherapist, university educator, and an entrepreneur from Sydney. I said I don't know why. I don't like reading things. I just like telling you, look, she's amazing. I love her. She's a dear friend of mine. I will read a little bit more though. So she lives in Sydney, Australia. She's worked with clients and organizations for over 20 years. And the last 5 years has been a tutor and educator to students in the University of Western Sydney in Australia. She's awesome. She runs e-commerce, online business. Founded. Oh my gosh, this bio is awesome, and I'm just going to stop there because she's awesome. That's Claudia Soul. Now I want to also bring on Missy Beck, and I'm getting okay. A lot of people are jumping on this. Okay, Missy Beck. Let me read a quick bio on her. Missy Beck is a licensed psychotherapist, mindset coach, and has been working with clients for over 10 years. Her background is in mindfulness. She teaches yoga, helps people with leadership programs. She's recently launched her online series. It's called Ignite Your Power from Within, and she's interviewed 25 amazing individuals, leaders in the community, really in the world. And actually, guess what? I'm one of them. Woohoo! I just got to tell you that. So I want to bring both of them on right now. Let's bring on our special guests today. We have Claudia Soul and Missy Beck. I got to look at you both. Hi, girls. How are you? Is that the way I look? Did I look the right way?
It's like a boxing ring where we just entered the boxing ring. So.
We should ding, ding, ding. That's great. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you both for being here. This is amazing. I really am appreciative. I know that you guys are super busy. Are you like me where you've all of a sudden over the last 3 weeks, you're the busiest you've ever been? Is that what's going on? Is that crazy? How is that for you guys? Missy, go ahead. I know we've got, by the way, the internet's a little wonky is the word I'm using these days. And so I'll go ahead and call on each of you kind of separately so that so there's no delay. So Missy, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, Erik, first of all, thanks for having us. Thank you for having me. I definitely would say that this is perhaps the most busy I've been. Clearly, when you are in a self-help wellness field and something like coronavirus is happening, that lends to being more busy. between, private clients. I work part-time at a school as their school counselor, coaching clients, this leadership program, as you know, because you were one of my guests for my show, Ignite Your Power from Within, which is just wrapping up. It's just been insanely busy. That said, I am so incredibly grateful to have a job and to be as busy as I am right now.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that. And Claudia, how do you feel? What's going on? Oops, you're walking around. Sorry, I just put you on screen. Claudia, how do you feel that you're doing? I know you're a professor. You teach at university over there in Sydney, and everything's online now. Is that right? What's going on over there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm moving around because I had a little bit of trouble hearing then, so I was trying to get a little bit closer to my router. Yeah, look, what's happened, it's been an interesting journey with the university, because obviously when you're teaching counselling students, it's very hands-on. And in fact, a lot of them were actually doing their placements, which is where they go and work for an organisation, and we're sort of supervising them and things like that. So that's all had to move online. So we've had to get very innovative in what we're doing to be able to still deliver a quality service to the students. So it's been really, really challenging. And it is a challenging time. I think it's a time when a lot of people will be accessing therapists a lot more than they ever have before. We're going to be needed more than we ever have before. And I've still got clients that I do all around the world, across the internet as well. So yeah, that's me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so glad that you came here. And did you actually paint that photo back there? And Salvador Dali is like, look, I need to have that photo, that painting behind you.
You can't have that. You can't have that. The reason I sat there is because given what's going on at the moment with the coronavirus, which has a, even though we think it came from an animal, it's definitely, there's a human element to it, right? And this really, that way. It's so everything's back. If you look at it, it's really about, you see the axe and you see sort of the destruction of the land. So it's very environmental, but it's about basically what, capitalism is doing to the environment. So that's what that painting represents. So I thought it was very apt.
Absolutely. Wow, it's a beautiful photo painting. Though I call it a photo. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so glad that you guys are here, though. So let's dive deep into this. So the topic that I want to chat about today for the School of the Unstoppable is I want to get into a conversation of what you think the difference is between a coach and an expert. Because I know both of you, you've spent years and years studying your craft and learning and having we both, three of us have talked about this offline about even what's called supervision, which I call it supervision. That's what I like to call it. But it's amazing how much attention to detail and really requirements that you have to go through to become a licensed psychotherapist. And I'm curious, what's it take? How's that process? Can you explain, each of you, can you explain how that process is and why you think it's so important? I'll let you, either one, just go, hey, I'm taking this. We're going to go with Missy first.
Great. So after a 4-year undergraduate degree came my master's. And so my master's program, it took me a little longer because I was going part-time at night while working, full-time in sales at the time. However, if one was doing that and just going straight and going full-time, that would be about a 2-year process. And then from there, you have to do 3,000 clinical hours. So it's pretty laborious in terms of the amount of time.
3,000?
3,000.
Oh my gosh.
3,000 hours.
Wow. That's, and how do you guys, how do you stay committed to doing this? It's in your blood, it's in your heart, right? Has to be.
Yeah, you have to be pretty committed. That's right. And I should mention that a lot of those 3,000, many of the 3,000 hours that you do are unpaid. You're a volunteer intern. So you're really giving a lot of yourself And then once you complete those hours, at least here in the state of California, you submit those to the Board of Behavioral Science, you wait to get their approval, and then you sit for your licensing exam. So it's, it's a long process. It's definitely not something that's just, achieved overnight or, a sign I hang on my door and call myself a psychotherapist. It took a lot of years and a lot of time.
Yeah. And congratulations to both of you. It's so, look up to that in a major way. So I'd love to know, what's one thing that you love about that, going through those years, and you can look back and go, oh my gosh, this is one of the best things about this. And kind of what's the one thing that you're like, oh, this was a struggle, or this is character building while I was going through it. And then we'll start with Missy, and then we'll cruise over to Claudia on that.
Yeah, I mean, to start with the thing that was most difficult, I would say the amount of time. The amount of time was definitely what was most difficult. Like I mentioned, many of those hours are unpaid. So finding that balance of being able to work, being able to have an income, and be giving of yourself with all of those hours. So I would definitely say that the time was the biggest challenge. In terms of what was my biggest takeaway and what was so incredible about it is that for those hours, when you find placement and you're seeing patients, clients, depending on where you're at and what you're calling them, I had the opportunity to work with so many different people of so many walks of life, so that I feel so well prepared now that anybody who comes, whether it's seeing me in my office or whether they're seeing me more as a coach and we're working virtually, or obviously right now we're doing a lot of telehealth because of coronavirus, but I feel very well prepared for just about anybody to come and walk through my door who's seeking services. So I feel really grateful for that. And Erik, I heard you mention the word supervision, and that's part of it. As you're gaining those 3,000 clinical hours, you're supervised. So I had a supervisor that whole time who I could discuss my caseloads with, who really helped to mentor me. She's actually still a great mentor to me. And that to me is absolutely invaluable. Being able to have that sounding board, being able to, talk to somebody else and get help along the way. So that's what I would say.
I love what you just said there in regard to the supervision. We're going to dive into that a little bit deeper as well. Love to jump over to Claudia and find out. Same question, so Claudia, going through your tenure of becoming a therapist, psychotherapist, and all the things that what was the best thing about it, that looking back at it, and what was the character building thing that you're like, what? What would that be?
Okay, what was the last part, Erik? I've got a little bit of sound problem here. What was the last thing you asked me? Yeah.
Sure. So my question was, what's the best thing about being a psychotherapist, and what was the character building part about going through the tenure of becoming one?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, I won't go over what Missy said because it's a very similar process in Australia. But I think you don't realize at the time particularly when you're doing your university education and you enter this as a career, you don't realize how much it actually changes you as a person. And I think for me, the thing that stood out most throughout my career is it's quite humbling to sit opposite someone and really see them at a level of their deepest struggle. And a lot of people don't get to do that in their life. They don't work with people who are struggling with addiction. Like I've worked in a lot of different areas until I started just work solo with clients. But you don't get to see that struggle. You don't get to see the struggle of children that don't have a home and what it's like for them to try and cope and feel different from everyone else in the world. You don't understand addiction. So it's quite humbling to sort of be exposed to that. And it does have a huge effect on you. And I think also what I learned, which is really important, is the huge responsibility we have when we expect others to go through any sort of change process, that we need to actually be making sure that we are changing and evolving all the time. And that's where our supervision becomes very important.
I love that. That's a really good point. So I have a question then. And I'm sure, by the way, Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else that you're watching this, if you have a question, please jump it in the comments here, type it, and give me some hearts with these amazing individuals that are today experts. So I have lots of questions, and I got to tell you. So let me just explain something. Look, I'm no expert. All right, you two are the experts. I know that. You know that. Everyone knows that. For me, and I'm going to put all of us full screen here, or whatever this is, the triplicate Brady Bunch screen, so we can all see each other. So guys, I'm no expert, but I have a lot of experience that I use. And I lead with that. So yes, I'm a coach. Yes, I go out there and help people build their business, build their attitudes, build their awesomeness, right? And what I do is I do it from my experience. Have you guys had experience where, like, I know that there's a difference out there. I mean, well, let me just pose this silly question, and hopefully I'm not going to upset that many people on this billions of people watching this. Have you noticed that sometimes there are people in this new social media age that they just decide, hey, I'll be a coach. You know, like it's like today's Tuesday or Wednesday. Thursday, I think I'll be a coach, right? And they just decide that, which is all fine and dandy. But in my opinion and my expertise, my experience, I believe that it's really important to go through that tenure experience to know what you're talking about, right? To actually have the expertise. And for you guys are, you know, I heard 3,000, what is it called? 3,000 clinical hours. Did I get that right? I think, yeah. And for in Australia, is it 3,000 as well? Or is it a close, what is that number there for you, Claudia?
Look, to be honest, I can't remember. It's 20 years ago, and it's probably changed quite a bit. I think back in the day when we needed to be able to become a member of our organization to be sort of what you call licensed, it was probably in the vicinity of 1,000, but it's probably more now. So, you know, I'm going 20 years, so it's a long time. No,
Gotcha.
I'm older than Missy. So.
I don't know about that, but I didn't mean to. Okay, I'm not going to say it there. So totally get you. So my point is this: it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's to me that to become a licensed, or whatever you're going to call it, an actual accredited expert in that field, you have to have all of these hours and supervision. Yet a lot of coaches decide that they're just going to get into that particular coaching realm, and yet they don't have the actual expertise. And I've noticed sometimes, and I'm not saying there's any big wrong with that, but I'm saying, like, maybe we should look at the experience that people have. If you're going to look at hiring a coach, or whether it's a success coach, a health coach, I want to go to somebody that knows what they're talking about, not what they're trying to learn on what they're talking about. Have you ever had that experience? Have you noticed that, where sometimes people go out there and they decide, you know what, I have this deficiency in this area, so I think I'm going to go ahead and learn how to become better in that area by teaching other people, and then I'll learn myself. And I think that's kind of a backwards way to do it. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. What do you guys think?
Yeah, look, I love to say something about that. I think, what's happened is with the internet is that people are able to gather content. So, and it's happened to me previously when I tried to launch myself into that internet world, which is about to happen again. But what I noticed is if people hear, because you do have more experience, what then happens is they will repurpose that content as their own. And this is the thing that I see happening a lot. And the danger in it is, if you're not properly trained, and I'm not saying you have to have a university education, but if you haven't got that, at least have some experience in what you're talking about, and have, worked with some level of people, like a number of people. And that's my concern. And I think what you're talking about, Erik, there, that newbies just jump on. They grab, they can listen to a video that Missy does or I do, and there'll be some great content in it because we've been working with people for years, right? but it's not theirs, and it doesn't come from here, and it doesn't come from the framework of experience. So that's what's problematic for me about that. And I have to add to that I've seen a couple of great, very, top of the world type coaches saying it's easy to be online. You just repurpose this content, package it up into a program, market it, do a sales funnel, and you can make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's interesting. That's in my opinion, those people are basically selling the program of repurposing, and they're not, you know what I mean? I mean, there's a business to sell a business of selling a business, so it's interesting how they do that. And I don't think it's fair. Whenever, from my standpoint, my ethics for myself is always, if I'm going to quote somebody or use somebody's information or repurpose something, I'm going to give them credit and say, look, I learned this from so-and-so, and this is what I've experienced from that. And that's perfectly fine to do. So interesting. Missy, what are your thoughts on this subject?
Yeah, Erik, I think it's a great question. And, similar to what Claudia said, I'm not saying that people out there can't brand themselves as coach and be successful and quite good at it. However, I think it's always really important to be checking in with where their education came from, even if it isn't formal university education, as Claudia alluded to. And it's my opinion that every good coach, every good therapist has their own coach or their own therapist. Because here's the thing, if we're asking our clients to do the work, we better be putting in and doing the work as well on ourselves to continue to grow, to continue to evolve, to constantly be looking in our own mirror. And I would encourage anybody watching this that if you are hiring anybody, you ask if they are working with somebody. It's not that they have to disclose the who or, the specifics around it, but I think that's just such an important factor. And asking for transparency, where were you educated, or how did you come to be a coach? I mean, that should be information somebody is very willing to give you, especially anybody who's really successful in what they're doing and making a difference in people's lives.
Totally agree with you. So we've got thank you for sharing that. We've got some questions that are popping up here on one of these social media outlets. And by the way, Missy, I love it when you say, when people knock on your door, well, are they really knocking on your door right now? I mean, come on, let's just face it. Today is March 31st. It's actually tomorrow today in Sydney, Australia. Already. Tomorrow for Claudia. And I always love asking Claudia, I go, hey, Claudia, how'd your day go today? And she goes, it was great. I go, hey, how'd my day go yesterday? She goes, you did great yesterday. So anyway, little joke that we have. But the thing is, we've got a lot of questions coming in. One of them is this, and I'd love to read this to both of you guys. Here it is. Is it, I don't know why I'm doing this. Why am I doing that? All right, so why am I pointing to the question? Is it just people who have depression or anxiety or a bigger problem that should use a therapist? Or is it good to be able to be like a leader or a CEO of a company? And if they can utilize therapists as well, coaches, therapists to help them move to the next level within their company, difficulties within, let's say, their company or their employees and connections with their employees. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, is it just people with big problems, or should we all have a therapist or a coach? And
yeah,
I always
I'll dive in because this
jump in. Yeah, go ahead. I love it. Jump in. I know there's a delay.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'm a believer that therapists and coaches should be working a lot more together than what they are. Because what can happen is when you engage a coach, if you're not personally ready or you're still engaged in some sort of major internal struggle, working with a coach and trying to kick your goals can become very hard. And you're liable to regress when you finish that, even if you even manage to get to the goals. So that's the first thing. And I think often therapists are needed to come in at that early stage and work with the client to go over what the internal barriers, the personal barriers might be. But absolutely, Erik, I think that organisations can work with therapists, whatever it is we choose to call ourselves. I call myself a change therapist. So if you want to make change, if you're the CEO of an organisation, you just need a coach to kick goals. If you're after wanting to change the way you do things, the way you relate to your employees, if you want to be a more empathetic leader, you know, all of these things are in the domain. We do this really, really well. So, and I'm going to let Missy speak to that now as well.
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. Really what I want to say about that is, yeah, Erik, to answer your question or to answer the viewer's question, in a perfect world, absolutely. Everyone has a coach or a therapist or somebody they're working with. Obviously, I'm not sure how realistic that is entirely, but I would offer that, yeah, if you're experiencing a tremendous amount of anxiety, depression, whatever it is, a therapist is a great place to start. And I would say anything in your life, and if you're looking to up level anything in your life, a therapist or a coach is a great place to start. I mean,
yeah, and coaches have coaches, right? I mean, let's face it, like talking about like big, huge sports figures, you know, basketball, like Michael Jordan. He was the first one to have a coach. I mean, not first one. He's the first one to tell you, look, get a coach. You know, all these different amazing athletes and so forth. I mean, from Tiger Woods, you name it. They all have supervision or coaches. Interesting enough, you talked about supervision, and somebody just wrote another question. Actually, let me read this. Do you think that it is important to have support or supervision in the work that we do, that you guys do? And I think you had alluded to this earlier, and I want to just jump in and say this. I find it interesting where a coach, just somebody who just decides they're going to be a coach, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, if you're going to decide to be a coach, that's great. You got a great aspiration to do that and help people. You've got obviously the right attitude. I assume you're going to be helping people. That's the reason for it. And you're helping them. And in turn, you're helping yourself by helping other people. So that's at least the way my mind works. And I find it interesting where, if you're licensed, I always call it licensed. I don't know why I'm air quoting that, but I always call it licensed. If you're licensed, then you actually have to go through those clinical hours, and you're supervised. And I don't think that's the case with any random coach that decides they're just going to be a coach. I don't think that they actually have to be supervised. It's almost like if you go to a chiropractor. I mean, and my father was an attorney. I mean, same thing. He has to go through these accredited attorney, I forget what they call it, hours of, what do they call it? Not CE credits, but
continuing education.
It is CE, yeah. So interesting. Claudia, you still with us? Yeah, good. Okay, for a quick second. But so what are your thoughts, real quick? I know we talked about it briefly before, but what are your thoughts on support and supervision in being a coach? What are your thoughts? Missy, I love the delay.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I think it's incredibly important to have that. Now that said, I know a lot of great coaches out there who do hire somebody to work with, who they work with in order to talk about their cases and whatnot. So it's a form of supervision, and I think that's so important. I think it's important in any job where you're really siloed and you're kind of working alone, that you're getting an opportunity to run things by somebody, to check in, to hold you accountable, to see what's coming up, especially when you're working with human emotion. And I wanted to jump back to something else you had said, Erik, about, I think you were referencing Michael Jordan, but just really, truly everything we do, whether it's being Tiger Woods, playing golf, or a great basketball player, and whatever it is, if you're at the top of your game, it really is all about mindset when you break it down. So it's so important to have somebody that you're working with around that, because that's really, at the end of the day, what almost everything comes down to. And I'd love to hear Claudia's thoughts on that as well.
Claudia Soul, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, no, look, I agree. A lot of it is mindset. I think there are certain conditions that people need to thrive. And, I'm not going to talk a lot about what I'm doing because I'm releasing a whole new therapy and way of working or modality of working. And I go into a lot of what these core conditions are. So I think there has to be certain things in play for people to thrive in the first place. And that's why their mindset might not be where it should be. Missy's absolutely right. Mindset dictates everything. But the step before that, again, is what are the conditions that you need to actually have a good mindset and to be thriving and be able to then start to kick the goals or have the relationship you want in your life, the business or have a career. So there are a few steps that are involved, and I really do, and I want to get this one out. I think sometimes therapists...
Could you share some of the steps? Are you able to do that? I mean, not give specific examples, but can you share a few steps that you've found to be really successful for people if they're stuck in a certain area and they want to go to the next area of success in anything they're trying to accomplish? Is there sort of formula that you've harnessed?
Look, I don't want to share my specific thing right now because it's something that I've not seen done. But I'll give you one example of something. If somebody wants to work with you and say they go to a coach or a therapist, let's not worry. If you dive in and try and work with them around a few goals they're trying to kick, but their entire life is built on a really unstable foundation. They're not happy in their relationship. They're unhealthy. They're a little bit overweight. They're not happy with that. And even though they might not present those issues to, say, a coach, if those things are affecting them, the other areas of their life, it will really interfere with them being able to kick their goals and work at that level. So, stability would be something that I think people need in their lives. That's a condition to thrive. That makes you more resilient. It makes you more adaptable. So you want to have all those things happening. You want to be able to be flexible, adaptable, respond, like at the coronavirus at the moment. It's how we respond that matters. It's, the stability in our lives is very important. So that would be one thing that I would say. And one of the great...
Sort of responding versus reacting. Is that sort of what we're talking about? Because like we just mentioned the coronavirus, obviously we're, today's March, end of March, beginning of April coming up here. And, we're in a situation where, this is a world pandemic situation. And in my estimation, and I'm curious about the two of you, what your thoughts are. My estimation is that there's three major things going on. There's the actual virus, and then there's the mental virus that we're dealing with this, and then there's the economical virus that's affected by the first two. And I'm just kind of curious how you guys, I believe you're talking about responding to it, not reacting or overreacting. That's where the word overreacting comes from. And what you had mentioned earlier, I believe you're chatting about, really finding the root cause of what's happening in that person's life that's affecting, like you said, there might be, maybe they're overweight, maybe they're this, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's all these different things that, what really is causing that person's, let's say, depression or anxiety or whatever the case is that we're trying to fix. I think that finding the root cause would be critical. Man, I gotta go. I'm gonna go through the 3,000 clinical hours. This is awesome. I love this stuff. So what are your thoughts on that? Please jump in.
Look, I think one of the things I would say, because I really want to, there's a myth that I want to just right now, which is related to what you're saying. We do look at root causes, but we very much relate it to the present and what's happening with a client in the present. And one of the things that and I know a top personal development guru that says this in their content. Therapists are often flicked off. Oh, they work in the past. I've seen this over and over again. Oh, they work in the past. That's why they're no good to you. You need a coach. That is absolutely a myth, 100%. And I know Missy's going to agree with this in a minute. We actually work in the present. What we do is factor in the client's story.
I bet coaches are the ones who are saying that, right? I mean, that would be a very interesting thing for a coach to say, oh yeah, and say, oh, you don't need a therapist, you need a coach. And that's why they're saying that. Interesting. Go ahead. So you factor ahead. Claudia?
Yeah, so we really are very relational. When we've got a client in a room or however we're sort of seeing them, even if it's across Zoom, we're very interested in the behavioral stuff, you know, how they're relating to us, how they respond gives us insight into how they are out there in their real life. And there'll be aspects of their story, you know, their personality and their journey through their life that also influences, but we don't go back there and focus forever. We might know that stuff. This is certainly how I work, but I'm interested in how it's influencing the present, which we call the here and now way of working. So,
okay, so I need to jump in and say this. So I totally agree with you, and the way I'm looking at it, again, just from a layman's perspective, I guess you'd call me a really smart one. So what I'm looking at is kind of like, you know, and rather than just taking a Band-Aid and putting it over and putting a quick Band-Aid on something and saying, no, just look for the future, it'll be okay. Really, you're not coming down to the root cause of what's happening, and not dwelling on what happened, but actually the behavior of why we allowed that to happen or allowed our mindsets to think of what happened. So it's how we're reacting or responding to it. So I believe, and I could be totally wrong, which I'm with two experts right now over here. I could be totally wrong, but I believe that it's getting down to the root cause of your feelings of how you are responding to what has happened in life, because something's going to happen. Whether, let's say, you know, I don't know, let's say this light above me is going to fall over here, and it just falls. That I could look at that as a really positive or a negative, or I could look at it as a negative and keep that dwelled inside me going, oh my gosh, I'm never going to sit in this position ever again in any place I go to, because I feel negative about that particular thing happening. So I am always going to be anxious or you know, forecasting that to happen. So that's kind of my layman's perspective. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to jump in here and just say, and I think this is exactly what Claudia is sharing as well, is that our past informs who we are, our past experiences, who we've been, how we've shown up in our life, any traumas we may have experienced, etc. Now, while it informs, it also doesn't define. So it's a little bit of the past is important to help understand the here and now, and it doesn't have to define you. And I also want to say, I think there's a lot of great coaches out there who do talk about the past as well, who don't just focus on the here and now. That said, there's some that don't, that just want to kind of move forward. And it's hard to move forward if you haven't sifted through any of the past yet.
Totally agree. You know, Brian Tracy used to tell me this. He would say, you know, if you're looking at going somewhere and I call you up on the phone and say, hey, give me some directions to where you're at. And they say, well, I'm over here. This is my address. Okay, but give me directions. What's their next question to me? Well, where are you in the past, like now or in the past, because I can't move you forward unless I know where you're at. So that's interesting. We're obviously coming down to the wire. I want to keep this within a time frame for us for just a 45-minute to 50-minute time frame. So we got about 5 more minutes or so. So I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Do you mind if I ask you a couple more questions real quick? Yes? No? Yes. Here we are. No. So my quick question is this. I'm curious. I work with a lot of, as you know, I'm kind of a chameleon, meaning I connect with a lot of different types of individuals through the world, right? From the really amazing cerebral types of like the Brian Tracys and the Jim Rohns and the Bob Proctors. I mean, amazing, right? Sharon Lecters. Oh my gosh. And I also have friends that are they're really like empathic. Is that the name of it? And somewhat spiritual, but empathic. They you know, Veronica Garcia, a great friend of mine. She's very empathic. She can see, she can feel and see aura, and I don't know aura, but anyway. So the point is, you guys don't like my jokes anyway. So the point is, my point is, I'm feeling that if you're in a position where you're taking on all of these, let's say, I don't know what your day looks like, but as a coach or a therapist, if you're taking on, let's say you have 10 appointments in one day, that is 10 people literally taking their stuff and giving it to you and saying, here you go, help me figure this out. Do you find that, do you embrace that? Do you bring that in? Does that weigh on the two of you, each of you? I'm asking you each. Does that have some type of weigh on you throughout the day, or do you have a system to really harness that, but then you release it to get to the next appointment, let's say? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think I heard it all. Again, the sound is a little bit funny at times, but, clients do bring a lot to you, and it is like, here it all is. But definitely from a psychotherapeutic point of view, we're more interested in helping or guiding the client to find their own answers to what's happening in their life, because that's part of the change process. And what we do differently maybe to coaches, we're not going to provide answers. We are there to help the client find the answers. Everyone really knows what it is they have to do to make the changes. It's just that usually there's something there stopping them. And I think, and Missy might be able to give an example from a couple's point of view, because I know she works a lot with couples, and I've done that too. And often couples are a great example. If you've got two people really struggling, they often really know what the answers to the problems are, and they've created a whole lot of stuff to distract from the larger problems, but they really just need someone there to guide them more than anything else. In terms of the second part of the question, yeah. So, and that's part of maintaining change, Erik. Unless you come to understand or come to your own answers, if they're not yours, it's likely that the change won't stick. It won't stick. So the other part of it is the fact that we take on so much. Yes, we do. Hello, beautiful Stacey Ellen. Sorry, I just saw Stacey. Such a gorgeous individual. So lovely to see you, and I'm glad you're here. I hope to see you eventually if this virus ever goes away. But I think in terms of the amount of stuff we carry, that's why we have supervision. And we also get very good at looking after ourselves and self-care. And one of the things you might notice if you really want to observe, and I see this in Missy too, when you meet therapists, and this is me blowing, you'll notice that we're usually very grounded and solid when you speak to us. We're not all about inspiration and whatever. We are trained very differently. And that helps us too in terms of filtering everything that comes at us and staying pretty grounded. So you get better at it as the years go by. I'll let Missy speak to that one as well. Here's Stacey.
That's awesome. All right, Missy, what are your thoughts? And I do have like one more quick question or two before we finish this session. So Missy, what's your thought?
Yeah, Erik, this is one of my favorite questions, to be honest, because hi, Tiffany, the second somebody says, or rather I say I'm a therapist, what always follows that is like, oh, you must hold on to everyone's stuff and people are dumping their problems, etc. And to me, that's a big misconception, because yes, as Claudia talked about, we do hold a lot of what our clients bring to us. And what I often find in the work that I do is it is actually incredibly hopeful. It's rare that I leave a session with a client just feeling absolutely horrible with the weight of the world on me. Generally, there's been something, even if it's a slight glimmer of hope that's happened within our conversation, within our time together, that allows me to see what they might not even be able to see yet of forward momentum. And I think it's important to differentiate there, because I don't know if we were talking with clients right now, if they'd say they always leave feeling better. In fact, I think in some cases, they may even feel worse because a lot of stuff has been brought up and they have to process through that. But it's more hopeful than it is heavy in my mind. And again, not to say that it's not heavy. And for me personally, and I heard Claudia use this term as well, it comes down to self-care. And I think she hit the nail on the head when she talked about in the training we've had, in the supervision we've had, you learn how to manage that. And of course, there's days that are harder than others. But for the most part, I've been able to use self-care and really know how to take care of myself after those sessions.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. So I have another question. So my other question is this, and I had it, it was right there and now it's gone. No, it's coming back. So my question is, nobody likes my jokes. All right. So, but it was serious. Hold on, it's coming around again. Yes. Wait. Oh,
we
no,
love you, Erik. We love you. Validation.
Oh, I want to be in the middle. I want to move you this way so I can be in the middle. So yeah, so here's the scoop. My question was this, and this is going to be kind of one of the final questions, and I'd love to, actually, I'm going to ask two final questions. The first one is this: what are your thoughts? And I'll just have one of you answer this one in light of time. What are your thoughts in regard to giving advice versus giving suggestion? And what does that mean to you?
I'd love to take this one, and if that's okay with you, Claudia, because I think this is such a huge, again, misconception. At least for me in the work that I do, I never will presume and give my clients an answer, a definitive. In fact, just recently I had a new client reach out to me, and we jumped on the phone quickly to see if we would be a good match. And she asked me something about would I give her directives? And I said, no. I said, what I do as a therapist is I help provide different lenses for you to look through, different ways of guiding you. I'm never going to presume to be the expert. You know, in traditional therapy, I see my clients, you know, once a week for maybe an hour. And so there's this much, you can't see my full arms, there's this much of your life and I'm getting this much of it, you know? So
right.
I really help process by looking through a different lens.
Okay, that's awesome. And do you want to add to that, Claudia? I know I just said one of you to answer, but do you want to?
Yeah, look, it's interesting when you meet another psychotherapist who's probably been trained in a very similar way and has got a lot of experience, because Missy answered that probably pretty much how I would answer it. And I love that, you know, we offer this different lens.
I told the two of you, you guys are very similar.
We are very similar. It's the training, you know, and also the experience. So, yeah, so look, I don't think there's anything that I'd even add to that. So,
okay. So that's
Missy
awesome.
answered it beautifully.
I appreciate that. And by the way, I love that. You know, in this level, there's no competition. It's all about collaboration. I love that. And this is such a beautiful, beautiful talk that we're having. So I have another quick question. I forgot what it was. Oh man, it was right there. All right, I know what I was going to ask you. Well, first of all, our great friend Daniel Gomez had mentioned, which I know we had mentioned, we had talked about this earlier in the program in the first part of the hour. But the question was, what's been the most challenging I guess, for you as a coach or a therapist / coach? So do you guys want to? Does somebody want to jump in there and say one of their challenging moments? I mean, yeah. Anybody?
Yeah. Look, I'm happy to answer that. I'd say that, you know, the very first client I ever had, I went to work in a therapeutic community in addictions. So I started my career very front line in amongst people, which is and Missy's nodding, and I can tell she's probably done this too. It's very handy because you see people at their most vulnerable. So the first client I ever had didn't want to speak for the first 3 sessions. So you can imagine sitting there in silence, but we're very good at silence. So that was a challenging moment, but I would say, you know, and understanding how I could help this person. And interestingly, what I would say ended up happening with that person is I remember, you know, he said to me, you're a terrible therapist, I'm going to report you. And you can imagine as a new therapist, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just started my career and now I'm out, you know. And so I said to him, well, you know, what would you do if you said, well, I wouldn't be in this room for starters, because this particular individual had been through 10 attempts at therapy in residential rehab. So we went for a walk and we did more informal way and some sort of very informal, kind of the beginning of being able to work together. But other than that, Erik, I would say for me, the most challenging has been when you're presented with people that are suicidal, and looking at ending their life and having to work with that. That's very confronting as a therapist. And, these days I don't do so much of that sort of work, but it's still there. And, the first time that I was ever in that situation, it was confronting and definitely very challenging, even though you know the steps to go through. There's part of you that stays in that with that thing. So other than that, on a general level, these days working with clients, what I would find most challenging is when people are trying to kick goals, whether it be a business or a career or whatever it might be, and you can really see and feel and know through interacting with them that there's some really deep personal issues, but through talking to them that they're not ready to go there. They're not ready to do the work yet. And that can be challenging. You have to make a decision whether you keep working and try and push them along, or, actually say to them, maybe it's better that you come back at another time when you're a little bit more in that place of being ready to do this work.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So wow. Thank you for sharing, both of you, on that. All right. So final quick thought, the final thoughts are going to be connected to my final question to both of you. So here we go. You girls ready? Here we go. So my final thought is, and question, same thing, is what is the type of person, and I'm going to preface this by saying, I realize that the two of you very well, and I know that you're there to help. You're there to help so many different types of people, no matter what's going on in their lives. I realize that. But my question is, what is the type of person that each of you really love working with? So what's next for you all? Like, I know that both of you have amazing businesses, amazing coaching businesses that are helping from CEOs to individual entrepreneurs to all these different types of individuals. What is a type of person that if I said, here, Claudia and Missy, I have iced tea on the floor right now, but besides my iced tea on the floor, I have two pieces of paper here, 10 names of individuals each, and here they are. This is the type of person they are. What would those be for your ideal client that you'd love to work with right now to finish this program? I'll go with Missy first, because I know he needs to right away after this. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to jump, Erik, but I do want to answer the question before I go. And
sure.
It's a funny question, because on one hand, in full disclosure, the immediate thought that came to mind for me was somebody who is motivated to make change, who's ready to jump and dive into the work. But as you continue to ask the question, I really had to stop myself and think about it, because the reality is I love the challenge of really whoever shows up at my door, or in this case, across the screen, given coronavirus. And it's, every person is unique. So every presentation is different. Everyone's past and the way they show up and who they are, it is really beautiful. It honors their story and what they've experienced in their life. So, ultimately, people who are really looking to be held accountable and make those changes, but it's really just beautiful to see anybody who comes into the work and wants to make a difference and a change in their life.
That's beautifully said. I love that. All right, awesome. So, Missy, before we let you go, how can we find you and follow you and stalk you? How does someone do that? Somebody find you. What's the best way?
So 2 best ways to reach me. One is either on Instagram. My Instagram handle is I am Missy Beck. My name is pretty simple, Missy, B as in boy, ECK. Or emailing me at missy@missybeck.com. So either way is a great way to find me. And I look forward to hearing from anyone who might just have a question or is looking for a little bit of extra support. And Erik, thank you again so much for having me. Claudia, a true honor to be shoulder to shoulder with you. You inspire me, and I'm looking forward to staying connected.
Oh, thank you, Missy. That's lovely. And likewise. I'm looking forward to staying connected too.
There you go. Awesome. So let me let Missy, oh, she's already gone. So she already took off. So let me put back Claudia and I. Excellent. So it's interesting. We got through this whole thing just right at 1 hour, and now the internet's kind of a little interesting. So it's perfect, though. I'm so glad that I'm glad that we were blessed to have the whole hour go very well, actually, or the 55 minutes, I guess. So Missy, that was Missy Beck, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely check with her and connect with her. And Claudia, I'm going to ask you before we finish this this portion. What's the same question? So what was the question? Oh, what's the best type of, like, here's the top 10 awesome individuals that really want to work with you. What is that type of individual? If you could put, these type of ideal individual you'd love working with, because it's so satisfying helping them, and in turn it helps you. I mean, if you're just like me, which I think we're very similar in a lot of different ways, I'm very, my heart is warmed. Is that how we say it? I feel warm. I don't know how to say this. My heart feels great when I help people in accomplishing their goals, and in return, my goals are accomplished. Does that make sense? So what is your ideal client that you love working with, and how can we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Look, I see a wide variety of people, but to be honest, my ideal client these days are people that are at the top of their game, high achievers, but there might be some struggle sitting there for them, that last piece of the jigsaw that they haven't quite put together. And it's often because they're so focused on the goals and kicking the goals that they're not looking at the other stuff that's sitting there. And I'm really good at getting in about 15 minutes flat when I talk to someone and unpacking exactly what's going on for them. So, wow. I love it.
That's impressive. By the way, that's impressive. That's great. You should put that on your. You should put that on your bio. Yeah, like 15 minutes. All I need. That's awesome.
Look, I have people say to me all the time. They'll talk to me for about 20 minutes or so, and then I'll say something back, and they'll go, "How did you know that? Like, how do you work that out? How do you know that that's what's going on for me?" That's what we're trained to do. We're after 20 years, you get really good at it. But so that's my ideal client. I work less anxiety, depression, and that sort of thing, but it's amazing how it factors in now for even entrepreneurs. The rate of anxiety amongst entrepreneurs is very high these days. But if people want to get in contact with me, I just want to say this: they can email me at info at claudiasoulglobal.com. Now, what I would say is just be aware that at the moment we're about to launch, my team's about to launch a new website, Claudia Soul Global, which will launch my actual own way of working, my own method and therapy, which is a really big deal. And there's going to be a book that follows it as well. So that's going to be about a week to 10 days, and that website's going to go up because it's all very hush-hush at the moment. But it's literally, if you think of some of the greats over the years in therapy, I'm literally have produced, after 20 years of research and working with people, my own method, my own modality, my own type of therapy. So, and it can be adapted to all sort of circumstances, like a Habitude Warrior Conference workshop with great leaders. So, yeah. So if we ever get out of, being locked up, hopefully I'll get back to the States. Yeah,
we will definitely. Wow, this is amazing. I'm really appreciative of both of you being on the show, and excellent. Thank you very much for joining us, Claudia.
That's all right. Can I say one final thing about you?
No. Okay. Of course.
Okay. So I just want to say this, because I've known Erik since I think it was 2016 when I went over to speak, and we've become very good friends. We know each other really well. And what I just want to say is, Erik for me was someone that, regardless of my qualifications, what I do, really opened my eyes to the world of what it is to really put yourself out there, which is something, we all have a struggle. Sometimes that's mine. But yeah, he put me on his stage. And I've learned a lot from him over these years of our friendship. So he's an awesome individual, which is why he's called Mr. Awesome. And, once his conferences go back, whether they're virtual or whatever, you have to go to them because there's an element of humanity in Erik's conferences and what he does that nobody else, no one has. It's unique to him.
Wow. I love hearing this. This is great. We need to get this recorded. Oh, wait, we are. Thank you very much for saying that. That's really sweet of you. And I put it up there, Habitude Warrior Virtual Summit. So what we're doing is adaptation. I was talking to a friend of mine, John Asseroff, and he has this word that's amazing word that, he doesn't have the word. He's talking about the word to adapt, adaptation. It's all about adapting, and what you were saying, Claudia, about responding, not reacting, but responding. Are you responding in a good, calm, collective way? My friend Ruben Gonzalez talks about being calm, collective, and cool. And my friend Brian Tracy talks about it's not the circumstance that defines the man. It's actually how you react or respond to certain circumstances that is going to really define the person. So I love that. Thank you for mentioning that. And we've got a virtual conference. Well, I'll tell you about that afterwards. But I just want to thank you, Claudia, for being there. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your time. I know it's morning in Sydney right now, so I hope you have an amazing Wednesday. Let me know how my Wednesday. I'll let you know how my Wednesday goes tomorrow, which will be your Thursday. So, last quick comment you'd like to share, real quick, to finish this session.
Oh, look, it's just been great to be here. And I'm just thinking, I think it was Mr. Gomez mentioned, he's going to love my therapy and my modality way of working because, being calm is a very, very important thing. But there are a whole lot of other things, and what you talked about in terms of responding, not acting, all of these things are very important. So more will be revealed and I'll bring more of that. But It's been great to be here and it's good. I have to do more. We'll have to do more.
Yeah, this is amazing. Well, thank you, Claudia. I appreciate it. I'll let you out of the studio. Enjoy the lobster down there if you like, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Claudia. Guys, that was just amazing. I'm so excited that we were able to bring these two individuals. One was in California in the United States, and the other one was in Sydney, Australia. Super excited about bringing both of them to you. And this is what it's all about. It's the School of the Unstoppable. This is the interview series on the live, and then what we're doing is we're actually taking all these amazing interviews and all these amazing individuals and experts and top leaders, and we're going to be conducting some what I'm calling inner training, which is interviews and trainings from each of these individuals to give to you. Well, there will be a nominal, I'm calling it compassionate pricing. I got that from Shanda Sumter, a great friend of ours as well. And she'll be on it as well. So we're having the, in fact, I'll put it up there, the Habitude Warrior Virtual Summit. And that's going to be on April 24th. So for those who would like to be invited, it is an invite only, okay? So if you'd like to be invited and have a ticket to be there for the one day, it's only one day. It's a virtual summit. It is literally the conference. And we have about 15 amazing speakers, authors, and trainers and leaders. And trust me, you do not want to miss this. It is one of the best conferences I will ever attend or produce. Okay, it's going to be awesome. Trust me on this, because the caliber of the individuals that I'm bringing to the table are, well, it's even surprised me. Okay, so I'll give you more information on that later. But jot it in the comments if you'd like more information on that, or if you'd like to be invited. I'm going to give you it for free to this because it will be one day of awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. And if you could you share this? Hit that, or as my friend Tucker says, smash that share button and share some love and awesomeness with other people. Thanks so much. By the way, the first 10 people who do share this, you get one of these guys. Bam. I get to put one of these in one of those envelopes that are down there, and I'm going to send it off to you. So talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much. Share this, and first 10 people get a creed sent to you in the mail. Thanks so much. Take care, guys. Erik Swanson, Habitude Warrior.